What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheeseheadz Weekly Podcast. It's good to be with you here again on a Tuesday, October 22nd. Week 7 is in the books, and the Packers are coming off a 24-22 win over the Texans. Came down to the wire, and we'll get into that here shortly. I do want to mention that the show is available just about anywhere you get podcasts. It is available in video form on YouTube as well. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you find us there at Cheeseheadz_weekly. We are also on social media at Cheeseheadz_weekly, on X at Cheeseheadz_W. You can rate the show, and that would be a huge help to us if you could do that. On Spotify, you can rate and review. On Apple Podcasts if you're listening there. And, of course, wherever you're listening or watching, it would be great if you could hit that subscribe or follow button. That helps a ton. And follow us on social media as well. That would be fantastic. And, of course, if you would like, you can hit the bell icon on Spotify and on YouTube to be notified when a new episode comes out. You can also tell your friends about the show. Very helpful as well to be able to spread the word and get more people listening to the show. And you can also check out our website at greatcove.net/cheeseheads. Without further ado, let's get into it. My overarching take after this game is a win is a win. I mean, it may be ugly, but it's a win, and we'll take it. It was a stressful game to watch from what I've been hearing. I watched like maybe 5 minutes of it, so I was not really watching the game. I had afternoon plans again, and I tend to enjoy doing other things more than watching football, or at least I find I enjoy hanging out with friends and those type of things instead of watching football. Watching football is certainly a great time, though, so I'm certainly not going to tell you shouldn't watch football, and that is why I'm a huge fan of it. But I did not watch the game, so I'm going, off of, what I saw in the highlights, what I've seen other people saying, what the general vibe is coming off the win over on X or Twitter, and just kind of going over that, looking at the stats, the box score, the PFF grades, the different things that go into that, and some little clips of film whenever I can find them. Excuse me. So we will get into this game a little bit more. As far as the quarterback, Jordan Love, wasn't a perfect game for him by any means, but he did go 24 for 33, 220 yards, another 3 touchdowns, and a pair of interceptions. His QB rating was 60.4, and his passer rating was 95.5. As far as the running game, Josh Jacobs was highly efficient, only got 12 carries, but ended up getting 76 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, had a long of 27, broke off a few explosive runs like he tends to do every week, and was able to turn some, potentially negative plays into positive plays. Very good at that as well. He continues to do his thing, and the Packers continue to be very good running the football. They did attempt they attempted 13 more passes than they had rushing attempts, so they did pass quite a bit more in this game, and a product of them being behind at times, and that tends to happen when you turn the ball over. And amazingly, I'll just read off the stat now. The Packers are 5th, or tied for fourth most in the league in terms of giveaways or turnovers by the offense, giving the ball to the other team. They have thrown 8 interceptions and fumbled the ball 3 times. The interceptions particularly are kind of high. All of those were thrown by Jordan Love, if I'm not mistaken. So he's certainly been, the Packers have given the ball away at a high level. It hasn't really mattered too much because they've gotten a lot of takeaways. And so far on the year, as far as turnover differential goes, they are +6 in that category. So still doing quite well just because they take the ball away at a high level. And they are first in the league in takeaways. And it's not even really close. They're 3 ahead of the next best team, which amazingly, interestingly enough, is the Minnesota Vikings. And the 3rd best team is the Chicago Bears. So some great defenses in the NFC North this year. Detroit Lions are in the top 10 as well in that department. So certainly have seen some good defensive play and some good play overall by this NFC North. And it suddenly looks like the best division in football. In fact, I don't really think there's much doubt anymore of that at this point. You got 3 potential Super Bowl contending teams, and you got another team in the Bears that is up and coming and looks like they could be in the playoffs and actually are in the playoffs at this moment. So if the season would end today, the Bears would be in the playoffs. The entire NFC North would be in the playoffs. So that's pretty crazy. The Bears are currently 4th in the division with a 4-2 record, if that tells you anything. So we're going to get into this game in a little more detail, and I'll just go ahead and give you my players of the game. Like I said, inconsistency seems to be something that the Packers continually lack, but this was a very good Texans team, 5-1. They were missing Nico Collins. That certainly played a big factor. They were missing some key starters on defense as well. That certainly played into it, but the Packers also didn't play a very good game. So I think, come, the postseason, I guess the only way they would meet up again would be the Super Bowl. But if they played this team again, I think they definitely could make it work against them. And, the Texans have quite the rushing attack. Joe Mixon did do fairly well against the Packers. That was one. I would say the defense had a very good game, but Joe Mixon did end up with 25 carries for 115 yards. He had a long run of 32 yards, but somehow only had 4.6 yards a carry. I guess he did have 25 carries, but the Packers did have a few key stops. They got the stops when they needed to. Certainly made some big plays, and it was, a very good game for Green Bay. Stroud did not throw an interception, but he had 86 yards passing, which is pretty incredible. He was sacked 4 times. Packers defense really showed up, and we have people overreacting and labeling Jeff Hafley as the best defensive coordinator of all time. I wouldn't go that far, but he certainly seems to be an upgrade over Joe Barry. I think it's safe to say that at this point. And the defense isn't perfect, but when you're taking the ball away consistently, that helps. A ton. And that is something that Hafley has prioritized since he took over the job, and it is shown. The Packers are leading the NFL in takeaways after being, probably very close to the bottom last year, and it has just been incredible, the transformation. The defense, like some players, like Quay Walker, hasn't really taken the step forward. Rashawn Gary has had a slow start to the year, as has Kenny Clark. Like, players have not necessarily stepped up. Of course, the additions of McKinney and Evan Williams have been huge, but it's like just the scheme overall changing and the ability to create turnovers has made a huge difference for this team. And, of course, Edgerrin Cooper, I guess, would be another key addition on the defense. A lot of the younger guys and the newer talent coming in have been really the key to this defense's success. On to the players of the game here. On offense, number 1 is Romeo Doubs, a second straight fantastic game. Did not have a touchdown in this game, but he was 8 for 94 in the passing game on 10 targets. Very productive game for Romeo Doubs. Was credited with quite a few contested catches. Turned in a very good performance, and that's exactly what you want to see coming off of the suspension, and he has stepped up big time for then. Number 2 on the list is Josh Jacobs. He, again, got only 12 carries, but was very efficient with the carries. Is consistently been able to generate explosive runs, and whenever there's good blocking, he's going to run for a while, and even when the blocking is not very good, still able to turn them into positive yards. Had a play that probably should have been a 3-yard loss, and he turned it into a 4-yard gain. So very impressive stuff from Josh Jacobs, and something that we have continued to see from him on a week-to-week basis. He has been very consistent and very good for this Green Bay run game, and they've been one of the top teams in the NFL in running the football, and have been very productive in that regard. And that helps the passing game, even if it isn't always something flashy. He's not been scoring tons of touchdowns, he's not been getting tons of yards, but he's been doing what he needs to win. And like I said, he was 12 for 76 in the running game, but he was 5 for 60 in the passing game, and got his first career receiving touchdown as well, an 8-yard reception, and that snaps the streak. That was the longest streak in the NFL for a running back to not have a receiving touchdown, I believe was the stat. So pretty impressively not impressive. I mean, not exactly a good stat, but yet, he's been productive his whole career, so not necessarily a horrible stat either. And he has always been productive in the receiving game. Just took him a while to not have a touchdown. Oh, actually, I think the stat is most receptions in a row without having a receiving touchdown is what the stat is, because he's had lots of receptions, been productive in the pass game, but has not got a receiving touchdown until Sunday. So kudos to him. Congrats to Josh Jacobs. And number 3 on the list here is going to be Jordan Love. I realize he did throw the 2 interceptions. Other than that, he was very good and led that game-winning drive that ended in a Brandon McManus field goal. Just got here this week, or last week I guess it is now, and able to nail the game-winning field goal, but it was Jordan Love who led that drive, and he was surgical on that drive. Very good stuff from Jordan Love, and that's the stuff we've seen from him. He seems to be a very clutch player. People have compared him to Brett Favre, with the way he throws lots of touchdowns, but also lots of interceptions. I think that's going to even itself out here. He did learn under Aaron Rodgers after all. I don't think we're going to see him throwing tons of interceptions every game, but I think he's, continuing to get better. He's still a young player, but he does seem to be very clutch in the fact that, he's willing to take those risks, and more often than not, he's going to make that throw, that tight window throw, because he's just that talented. And so when he just trusts what he sees and lets it rip, and, that's something you can do whenever you're leading a drive down the field, you're throwing the ball, not much time on the clock, you got to get down the field in a hurry, and so you can take those risks and just drop back and let it rip, and that is when he is at his best. He tends to take more of those risks when he's not leading game-winning drives as well, when it's not in crunch time. But that is what leads to interceptions. But in the end, he is very clutch, and I think the interceptions will eventually subside for him. He is throwing a fair amount of them per game at the moment. But again, season, still early, and he did miss 2 games on the season. As far as Defensive players of the game, number one is Eric Wilson, and he was, played just about out of his mind. He ended up with 9 total tackles, led the team in total tackles. Or I'm sorry, that was Evan Williams, who is also on this list, by the way. Eric Wilson was tied for second with 6 total tackles. Quay Walker got injured, so he stepped in and was the guy wearing the headset for the defense, the communicator, I guess, the green dot. And so he was, very keyed in this game as the veteran backup linebacker and known for special teams play, but he stepped up in a big way. Just about as many big plays as you could possibly put into a game. He made 2 tackles for loss of Joe Mixon, sacked C.J. Stroud twice on blitzes on third down, both of them on third down. Also broke up a pass on third down, and also had another special teams tackle. So he has been a game changer when needed for the Packers. Had a great game in week 2 against the Colts as well, and could be earning himself some more playing time. Evan Williams is number 2 on this list. I already said it for the wrong guy, but he did lead the team in total tackles with 9 of those. He played 100% of the snaps in this game, as did Xavier McKinney. First time this year that has happened. Those two have graded out, or at least after last week, they had graded out as the 2 best safeties in the league. That has changed this week because Evan Williams was absolutely ripped off on possibly his best game of the year. Got a 57-something grade on PFF. I'm not sure how that happened. X has been blowing up about that. But he continues to be very good, and having those 2 always on the field, I mean, why would you take him off the field if when he's on the field the whole game he plays even better than any of the other games he's played this year? So, and he's been pretty good this year. He like I said, led the team in total tackles, but made plenty of impactful plays with those tackles as well. On 4 different runs, he had a tackle at or inside 4 yards. He stuffed the Texans' 2-point conversion attempt with a perfect open field tackle of Joe Mixon. That was a thing of beauty. And I did actually get to watch that play live. Watched a great Eric Wilson play live too. I tell you what, those 2 showed up even in the little bit of time that I was watching the game. And this is a game that the Packers won by 2 points, so that stop on the 2-point conversion was, pretty helpful, pretty important as well. So, big game from Evan Williams. And number 3 on this list, I believe for the first time this season, is Rashawn Gary. Expected to see him a little bit more on this list, towards the beginning of the season perhaps. But it's been a slow start for him, but he is now starting to heat up. The last couple games he has been pretty good, and he produced 6 pressures. And, Jeff Hafley's been moving him around. He likes to move his guys around. I think that's been helping Gary as of late. But he also was productive on traditional rushes as well. He had a sack of C.J. Stroud and a pair of QB hits. Besides that, was often seen chasing Stroud. I was able to witness a play. One of his QB hits, it wasn't a sack, but he chased Stroud out of the pocket and forced him to throw on the run. I think it was basically just a throwaway, or it was an incompletion. Either way, forced a bad throw. And so, yeah, that's very much an impactful performance, even if it is just 1 sack. And he also was good against the run, which he has been pretty solid against the run so far this year as well. Had 2 run stops. Great to see from Rashawn Gary, a very complete performance for him, and hopefully we'll see more of that down the road here as we continue on through the season. That's it for my players of the game. Looking ahead, the Packers will take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I should probably look up the details of that game I know where it is. It is in Jacksonville, but when it's taking place, the details of the game. It is at 1 o'clock, so they get another early game. We've seen quite a few of those this year, taking on the Jaguars in Jacksonville. The Jags are 2-5. I believe their 2 wins have been back-to-back. I think they have a 2-game win streak at the moment. I know they won against the Patriots in London, put up 32 points. They started out the season atrociously and have apparently been looking a little bit better as of late. So this is certainly not going to be a pushover by any means. I expect Green Bay to win, but certainly not one where you can get complacent and just think you're going to win without trying. This is an NFL franchise, and they're starting to trend in the right direction. So certainly have lots of talent all over, honestly, on this team. As far as turnovers and everything, I was looking at some of those stats because it sounded like the Jaguars, from what I had been hearing, were, Trevor Lawrence was turning the ball over a lot. Maybe he did the first couple games or so, but in reality, if you look at it, they are actually in the bottom half of the league. I think they're tied for 22nd in the league for most giveaways. So they really have not been turning the ball over at that high of a level. They have 7 turnovers. Let me just look here. 3 interceptions, 4 fumbles. The Packers actually have a good bit more turnovers than they do with 11. They are tied for 4th most in the league in terms of the giveaways with 8 interceptions and 3 fumbles. But the big difference is in terms of takeaways. The Packers are number 1 in the league, as was mentioned, with 17 total takeaways, 9 interceptions, 18 fumble recoveries. And the Packers, if you just watch them tackle, even on ones that aren't actually fumbles, they are always punching at that ball. Hafley has really been teaching them well, and they're making short tackles, but they're also making sure you hold on to the ball too. And that kind of tells the story. I believe that is probably the most fumble recoveries in the NFL. It is. So that is quite impressive for Green Bay. But like I said, they're first in the league in takeaways. Jacksonville, they are tied for 29th in the league in terms of takeaways. So they only have 3 takeaways so far. Defensively on the year, big difference. And so this is a good matchup for Green Bay, not only defensively but also offensively. Jordan Love, maybe he'll have a clean game against this Jags defense that really has not performed very well. Not really up to expectation overall as a team. They've not been all that great. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out in this game, and certainly not going to be, just an easy win, like I said, but Green Bay is favored by 4.5 points in Jacksonville. So hopefully we see a win there. This game is on Fox, and so you can check your local listings to see if you can watch the game. I'm not sure if I'll be watching it or not. I guess it depends on what is happening that day. But shorter episode of the show. Like I said, didn't watch the full game, so I don't have a ton to add on this game. If you watched the game, you probably saw more than I did. So be sure to, leave a comment on YouTube, wherever you're listening, on Spotify, or just comment on social media about the game, your thoughts on the game, anything you potentially want me to discuss on any future episodes of the show. That is, any inspiration, that I can get is valued, and I value your feedback. Love to see that. It brings me a lot of joy when I can see fans enjoying the show. So I really appreciate you all listening every week, and that is a huge help to growing the show, to continue to be able to do that. So thank you for that. But like I said, that will be it for this week. I'll talk to you next week after the Packers-Jaguars game to give my reactions to that and look ahead to Week 9 as we continue to move along, getting close to halfway through the season. Things are, heating up a little bit here, so lots of great stuff. Like I said, hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. That is a huge help, and I will talk to you next week. Go Pack, go!